Welcome to Frequent Miler on the Air. Hey, Nick. Today we're going to do something a little different with our show. Instead of us, I'm pretty excited about
Something
this.
new.
We're changing it up a little bit. Instead of just bringing up 3 or 4 random topics, we're going to dive into award sweet spots. And what we're going to do is we're going to start from the bottom and go up. So with the bottom being
The back of the
economy
plane.
class sweet spots, move up to premium economy, business class, and then ultimately first class. So that's how we're going to sort of set up the show.
All right, so we're going to build up, slowly build. There's some excitement. So each
Right.
thing, there's something a little bit more interesting coming, maybe. We'll see.
Exactly. So we'll see if that works out the way we're kind of envisioning it.
We can help.
We don't know at this moment. By the time anyone's listening to it, we will know by then, and we could go back in time and warn you. It's not going to be as good as we thought. No, all right. So before we jump into that, though, we always have 2 segments first. We have when we remember them. We have the feedback time, and then we have the what crazy thing did Citi do this week. So feedback time. Now, I know that you love feedback time.
I do. I love hearing what people have to say.
And I know you even more love confession time when it's not your own confession.
Everybody loves it. Everybody loves it.
So I'm going to do neither of those.
Oh, man. Come on.
and I'm going to do a little rant.
A little rant. Okay. Well, I mean, that could be
rant.
fun depending on what the rant's about.
Yeah.
It's a customer service story. Nobody wants to hear it. But
no, it's not a customer service story, really. Although I guess it could tie into one. But
that's okay.
Anyway,
we'll give you a pass.
Here's the thing. So Rakuten Visa. Some of us who have the Rakuten Visa have it set up to earn membership rewards points, and it gets 3x for online purchases that go through the Rakuten portal, which is great for those purchases. But it hasn't been much use since they stopped giving us 3x for gift card purchases through the portal. So it's been collecting dust until this month when suddenly I got an email saying 6x on groceries and mobile wallet payments.
And you were like, dust that off, 6x on both of those.
That's
back to
awesome.
The top of the wallet.
Right? So I loaded the thing into my Apple Pay for the first time ever. And I marched off to CVS and tried to Apple Pay some gift cards. And no dice.
Like a good
it
plan.
Was declined.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So, it was declined right off. I didn't think I had to, usually when you start with a new credit card, before doing really big purchases, you need to ramp up slowly or else you're likely to get a lot of things declined.
Season
I didn't think I needed to because, season it. I didn't think I needed to because it wasn't that long ago I was doing large gift card purchases all the time online. So I thought,
Rakuten had a better memory than they actually do.
I thought something like that. So I pressed yes. Like I got a text, is this really yours? Pressed yes. Tried again, declined again. Okay, that didn't work. Anyway, I'm gonna fast forward a bit because
I tried a bunch of purchases.
I called Rakuten several times to clear up the fraud holds on my card. Each time they said, "You're good to go. It'll definitely work now." And every time it got stopped again, including one time a manager promised me it was all fixed. And then I went immediately after that into a Walgreens, tried my Apple Pay, denied. So it looks like, there's at least one person on Facebook who seems to have narrowed it down to Apple Pay itself. He was able to get so I did get some purchases through at a grocery store, not through Apple Pay.
Just using the card.
Just using the card directly. So that's good. Not all of them went through, but at least some did. But none of my Apple Pay purchases, at least of gift cards, have gone through. Like,
did you try anything else? Did you try?
Yeah, I've been using it as my everyday Apple Pay. Like, spend $40 at the store or whatever.
Right.
But and those do go through. But the bigger gift card purchases are not going through. And so anyway, one person on Facebook said he went to Meijer tried Samsung Pay and it worked. Then you tried Apple Pay and it didn't work. It's not proof because it could be the repeated purchase that was the
Right.
trigger. But anyway, so my little rant is this.
Get an Android phone.
If you're going to give me one of the best deals in the world, make it actually work so that I can abuse it.
Apparently, they just didn't want to be abused as much as you wanted to abuse them. That's all. They put up a wall somewhere. They were like, "Oh, you Apple Pay users, you try to get tricky with your stuff and your mobile wallet payments." So they took that away from you.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like 6x is amazing, phenomenal, but with the amount that I'm spending just day to day, especially during quarantine times, it's not really going to amount to a big hill of beans. It's like a very small hill of beans.
Right, very, very small. Can. Maybe.
So,
maybe not a hill.
Yeah, a little mound of beans. So you have to buy gift cards in order to spread it, to make that mound of beans.
I mean, and they're clearly incentivizing you. They want you to go out there and use it. So
that seems to be what their goal is.
So now, the question that I'm sure is on everyone's minds, because the regular readers know that you also have a Google Fi phone. So we all know that you have a Motorola phone of some sort that's on Android. Maybe you don't use it every day, but you've got one, so you could potentially use Google Pay on that. And I don't know if you've gotten rid of your Samsung Watch, but if you have that, you still have potentially Samsung Pay there. Have you tried anything else yet?
I haven't yet. So that's my plan, is to dust off my Samsung Watch and see if I can first of all remember how to use it and load the Rakuten card in there and see if it works. Yeah, because that would be nice, because there's only so many purchases I want to make at the grocery store every day, and if I could expand out to the other stores and still get that 6x for the rest of this month. It ends at the end of the month.
So here's a tip. When you dust off that watch that you haven't used in a long time and you set it up with Samsung Pay, take out your wallet, you start putting your cards in it, remember where you put your wallet after that. Because I haven't seen my wallet in like 3 weeks now. I've got my watch, so I've been able to use that to pay for stuff. But luckily, I haven't needed my license at all, because I have no idea what I had it that day. And I have not seen it since I put my cards in. So,
that's funny.
That's
nice that it works literally everywhere that you need it. So.
It does. So I've been okay. I mean, I have some backup cards too, in case that weren't in that wallet, of course. But I don't really want to dust off the Club Carlson card when I could be earning much better on groceries right now. So, so anyway,
that's my little rant.
All right. Best of luck. Best of luck.
Thank you very much.
I hope you're able to abuse that much better these next couple of weeks. So
thank you. That's
on to what crazy thing did Citi do this week? But not to disappoint you, Citi didn't do anything new and crazy this week. Really, they just continued their crazy because if you've been following along, they announced that they started offering the 3X at grocery stores, and I think at restaurants also started as of June 2nd this month. And they emailed that to bloggers, to their PR folks, on June 4th, 2 days afterwards. No idea why they did it 2 days late and why they started on the 2nd and not the 1st. But what I don't know even more is why they still haven't told cardholders, and why they furthermore haven't told the phone agents. Because we had somebody comment on the post this week saying they called Citi and the agent said it doesn't start until August 23rd. And I was thinking, except it already started. But of course, yet again, phone agents prove that they often don't have the latest information and don't know what's going on. And Citi, why did you email the PR? We said this last week. We said, why did they bother with the PR people and not email the cardholders? You couldn't email your phone reps? I mean, come on, couldn't email them and let them know? You would think you want people to know that they're earning a bonus on groceries right now, that they could take that card out of their wallet if they wanted to. But so Citi's continued that craziness.
They probably told all their phone reps, you need to be reading Frequent Miler, and those phone reps just haven't been reading.
Haven't, apparently.
Enough, right?
Right, enough. They missed it on the 4th and didn't see Week in Review or something. So they apparently are out of the loop. So just a fair warning, if you're going to call Citi and ask their reps about something, keep in mind that they may be out of the loop, and they should probably read Frequent Miler. You might want to suggest it to them. Maybe that word will get around. Maybe they'll toss it in the Slack conversation or something in the office and let everybody know, hey, read Frequent Miler.
That's a good idea. Yeah. So, one of us should probably dust off a Premier card and actually use it at a grocery store or restaurant, just for one little purchase, just so we could see the little 3x
3x.
on the online statement and can kind of prove it.
Well, that was one that was in my wallet that I put in my watch. So I do have it on my wrist these days, at least, even though I can't find the physical card. But one of these days I will. I guess that's the nice thing about quarantine. I don't really need to worry about it because I don't really have to go anywhere. And I didn't go anywhere, so I know it's here at home somewhere. I just can't imagine what happens. So
right.
Anyway, all
Maybe
that
your son's
said,
playing with it.
I mean, it wouldn't totally surprise me. The scary thing is that we stayed at a hotel last year, and we stayed at a lot of hotels last year, right? And one of the things we learned traveling with him, once he got able to walk around and pick things up, we learned when we went to check out one day and there was a long distance phone call on our bill, we learned that we should unplug the phone when we get into the hotel room. So these days, that's the first thing we do is unplug the phone, right? But we stayed at this one Holiday Inn Express somewhere. And for some inexplicable reason, either instead of or before unplugging it from the wall, we unplugged the handset, like the part you hold up to your ear from the phone itself. And we went to check out and we could not find that anywhere. He must have thrown it in the garbage and it must have gotten taken out because it was not in that room. We tore the room apart and we couldn't find it anywhere. So he clearly must have thrown that one out. And so who knows? Maybe my wallet went to the dump recently.
Yeah. Did you fess up to the hotel or did you just be like, all right, let's run out of here quickly?
I mean, I figured they'd bill me for it if it mattered, right? Figured they'd bill me for it. They didn't. So I figured,
all right.
They figured it out. They found another receiver somewhere.
Oh, good.
All right. So all that said, now that confession time is over, thanks for that, Greg. Let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff that we kind of unearthed this week or wrote about this week. We said we're going to start at economy class at the back of the plane and work our way forward. So this week I wrote a post about flying economy class to Africa, which I don't know. Does that sound appealing to you, Craig?
Well, I've done that. Been there, done it. So,
just last year.
I'm done. Just last year. Yeah, that was my 40K to far away destination. And I flew a lot of economy class and it was almost all Star Alliance. So I think that was that relevant to your oh no.
Not entirely, but I mean, but well, it wasn't probably the key sweet spot in that post. I think the key sweet spot in the post, though, was actually flying Air France, specifically in economy class, Air France or KLM, because, man, Virgin Atlantic has some great prices. I don't get super excited about redeeming my miles for long haul economy class, but on the flip side, some people are traveling with a family, you need 4 or 5 seats, and you can probably get that in economy class, and you probably won't get that very easily in business or first class. So, and really, if you're looking at some of those like Central African nations that I think can be pretty pricey to fly to if you're paying the economy class prices from a lot of places, you're looking at like $24,500 from the Eastern United States to Central Africa using Virgin Atlantic to fly Air France or KLM, and they fly to a lot of places in Central Africa. They have
that's so cheap. That's only one way though, right?
That's one way. Yeah, 24.5 one way, and that's during off-peak times. During peak times, I think it's 34.5K each way.
Okay.
But that's like less than what most programs charge to fly to Europe. And you're flying to Europe and continuing on to Africa like another 8 hours or something.
Right. Yeah. Because the standard rate, like to the extent that there is a standard from US to Europe, is like 30K one way in economy, right? That's what most programs charge.
Most 30, a couple maybe 25. And yeah, I mean, there's some outliers, but yeah, 30 is generally the accepted norm. And so 24.5 to get to Central Africa, 20K to get to Northern Africa. So 20K. I mean, my goodness, you can hardly cross the Atlantic at 20K. Maybe you'll find a deal where you'll get across the Atlantic for 20K. So being able to get, and that's like a deal that you'd have to search and hunt for. Whereas this is 20K all the time. Well, all the time during the off-peak season anyway, which is about half the year anyway, I think.
And this is with Virgin Atlantic miles to fly Air France, right?
Air France or KLM.
Or KLM. Okay. Now, and Virgin Atlantic miles are super easy to get.
Super easy.
Transfer from almost everyone except Capital One, I think.
Except Capital One
doesn't support them yet.
That's right.
So
Wouldn't be surprised to see that happen someday, and Capital One join the party there too. But yeah, super easy. There's often each year we usually see a transfer bonus or two to Virgin Atlantic. I don't know if we've seen anything this year. I don't think we've really seen any transfer bonuses since the whole COVID thing hit, but not uncommon to see 25 or 30% at least once a year. So I mean, if you hit the transfer bonus too, then that's super cheap to fly
oh
all
yeah,
over to Africa.
yeah, that's nuts. And that post of yours reminded me of how I had written up a post about how to use Virgin Atlantic miles to book Air France awards. And in that post, I noted that the premium economy award prices were super cheap between the US and Europe.
That's right.
So it, for in off-peak times, East Coast US to Europe, to most of, Western and Central Europe, is only like 24K one way.
In premium economy.
In premium economy. This isn't like the Comfort Plus type of thing, in domestic economy flights. This is a, extra recline, usually a footrest, better meals, all that kind of stuff.
Something that more closely resembles domestic business class,
first class,
right?
yeah,
First class,
yeah,
whatever they want to call it.
yeah, exactly. And so that was pretty sweet. And when I wrote about it back then, it was kind of buried in my bigger post about how to do this. And but what I noted at the time was that premium economy awards at the time were wide open. Every route I looked at, you could get like 9 seats, no problem.
Unfortunately, they were reading frequent miler.
they were reading frequent miler, because I actually started writing up after your post. I started writing up this specific sweet spot as a headline, 24K to Europe, and East Coast US, by the way, it goes all the way as far west as Chicago. So
Right.
it's really quite a lot of the US population can fly for only 24K if you could find Air France premium economy to Europe. Problem is, there is none anymore. When I say none,
9 to nothing, huh?
I checked like crazy, all kinds of things. So I started on Virgin Atlantic's site because I thought it would be easy based on my previous experience, that I could pick pretty much any date and just look and I'd find it. Didn't find any. So then I remembered that Seat Spy, which is a tool that we've talked about before.
Yes.
They support Air France awards. So you can see at a glance all the award space for a whole year, and you could pick by cabin as well. So I picked each of the US destinations from Chicago eastward that Air France serves, looked at it, Seat Spy, zero. Literally zero premium economy awards that whole time.
Just zeroed it all out. Got rid of all of it.
I don't know what's going on. So I don't know.
Effect.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible it's COVID related in some way, that they just changed things up, and so they're not releasing. And for some reason that affects their award space in premium economy. Now they still have award space in economy, still have it in business class. So
weird.
I don't understand it. They still fly premium economy. I could still book it through Air France's website, just not with a partner award. So, so that's one of the best sweet spots that you can't book.
But it's a good one to keep your eye on.
Right
Sometimes you keep an eye on something like that. The thing is, eventually, when somebody flips the switch back, there's going to be a ton of award availability. And if you were the one watching for a while, you're probably going to luck out.
Right. I mean, unless it was a mistake that they had released so much, because it's possible, that their partners weren't previously able to book premium economy, so they'd never paid attention to what award space they were releasing, and so maybe it was just releasing all of it, and that maybe that was a bug or just a oversight. But now it seems to be a bug or oversight in the other direction, which is
right.
I don't know why they wouldn't release some.
So what do you think about that? It came up a little bit today, talking about some other stuff that we'll discuss here in a little bit. Do you think that award availability is going to be better or worse in the coming months? I mean, there are a lot of situations where we've seen airlines historically release like 1 seat, or historically release 2 seats, or maybe they used to release 4 and now they release 2. Do you think that we're going to frequently see more award availability far in advance when travel picks up here? Or do you think it's just totally going to be unpredictable?
Yeah. I think with some airlines we will, because I think they're going to be, um, you know, eager to fill up their planes again, and that's one of the ways they can do it. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't think that'll be uniform across the airlines or the routes, right? I think it'll be certain routes that they're going to say, well, in order to keep those gates, we have to fly so many times. So let's make sure that our planes are flying full and open up a lot of ward space. I think we will see that. That's my
Hmm.
guess.
Yeah, interesting. So worth keeping your eye on that particular sweet spot. Virgin Atlantic, interesting because they have all these different partners and they don't belong to an alliance. So sometimes I forget about the partners that they have. In fact, just today I was looking at their site because question about lap infants came up, and somebody mentioned or using rather Virgin Atlantic miles and booking a lap infant that way. And I was like, oh, that's right. Yeah, you can use miles on them. And they used to have different prices, I think, for different partners. But when I went to the site today and I went through all their different partners, looks like their pricing is now standardized. 1K each way in economy, 5K each way in business class, 7K each way in first class. And there was only one partner, Virgin Australia, that had premium economy listed, and that was 2K. Air France KLM had no pricing for lap infants at all in Virgin Atlantic, and they were the only partners I think that did not have
Hmm.
lap infant pricing, which I found kind of interesting. But at any rate, it made me look at it, and I was like, oh, that's right. They're partners with Air China, and they're partners with South African Airways, and they're partners with so many different random airlines, Air New Zealand,
I know.
in different alliances, different parts of the world. So it's always some
But
interesting.
the other weird thing is how inconsistent the word pricing is.
Well, that's
You know,
true.
you look at some of them and it's spectacular pricing, and others it's spectacularly bad, and it
Right.
just doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to it.
No, it is. It's kind of all over the map. It's true. And some of their partners, like Air New Zealand, for instance, rarely ever releases business class award
Right.
availability. So, if you're looking to fly up front, you're not going to probably be able to use any kind of miles on that particular airline. But yeah, anyway, always worth keeping an eye on them and seeing what else pops up, what else sprouts up over time. So, all right. So that was economy and
Right.
premium
So
economy.
yeah, so now business class. We've written a few posts about business class awards. Uh, at the beginning of the week, I wrote about my struggles with having a bunch of ANA miles that are going to expire and what I'm going to do with them. And most of the solutions, I think all the solutions I suggested involve booking business class awards because ANA has such good business class award pricing.
They sure do. They sure do. They have, I think, the best business class award pricing across the board of any program. I mean, other programs might have a sweet spot here or there, but I think if you were to look at one airline program in terms of their pricing, it's got to be the best, right? I think the most expensive business class award is a Star Alliance award that's 136K round trip, and Australia for a Star Alliance business class award is only 120,000 round trip, which, I
So
mean,
what's further away than Australia?
yeah, that's the crazy thing. It's not necessarily farther away. It's Asia 2 as a Star Alliance
Okay.
award is 136K. But Asia 2 for them is not only the traditional Southeast Asia, but it's also like all of India and Nepal and Pakistan and like all of the various places in that central part of Asia. So it's really kind of more Central Asia, Maldives, etc. And Eastern, Far Eastern Asia. So that one's 136K for Star Alliance partners. But today I wrote about ANA even more because Stephen Pepper was doing a post yesterday because we found out this week ANA has dropped their fuel surcharges on most of their own flights. Not all of them, but the vast majority of their own flights. They've dropped it to
Right.
$1 per leg each way. So I mean, that's terrific because ANA's already got amazing business class pricing. When you take out the fuel surcharges, hello, it's fantastic. And so Stephen had emailed me because he saw this award pricing to Australia for 105,000 miles round trip. And he's like, I thought it was 120. And I said, oh, that's right. When I wrote the post about it, I was just thinking about the Star Alliance pricing. It slipped my mind that ANA charges a different rate for flights on their own metal, and it's seasonal. So it depends on the time of year you want to go. And it just so happens that, like, basically the heart of the Australian summer is low season for whatever reason. The time of year when I would
Yeah.
definitely want to go to Australia is low season. And so it's 105,000 miles round trip. And now, since there's no fuel surcharges, it's 150-ish bucks in tax, or you can add a stopover in Japan also for like another $10, basically 160 bucks. I mean, 105K round trip with no fuel surcharges to Australia and the
Right.
ability to do a stopover. Hello.
So yeah, right. So from the U.S., this is from the U.S. round trip, business class, ANA, which is no slouch.
Right.
You really enjoyed your
I
your
love
ANA.
ANA. And not everybody
I
loves them
haven't
as
flown them
much as
yet.
I do, but I love them. And the new business class, if you can get it, which
Oh man, that looks
that looks
spectacular.
terrific. Yeah, I think they're only flying it out of New York so far from the U.S. I'm not positive on that.
I think
I have
that's
to double
right.
check, but I'm pretty sure that's it, just out of New York. And I think it's both the flights to Narita and Haneda out of New York now. Originally, it was only one or the other, but I think it's both now. So if you can get that, great. Hard to find award space. At least I had a hard time looking at it last night. If you find award space, it's typically just for one person, it seems right now. But at any rate, you can get two people out of a number of the other cities, and I like the old ANA business class product. The one before the new one. So yeah, I mean, it's terrific. I think that's a great price, and that's not the only one. I mean, 75K round trip, low season to go to Japan, which includes most of the month of April or all of the month of April, I think, which is like cherry blossom time. Again, another time you would want to go to Japan. How is that low season? I don't get it, but who am I? So 75,000 miles
Right.
round trip and like $55 in tax now. So
And
great deal.
their seasonality is that fixed across all routes, like as far
No,
as their definitions of low and high? No, it's route specific.
it's region specific. So they have
Okay.
seasonality for between Japan and Europe and North America and Hawaii and maybe like Russia 3 or something like that. They have one set of low, regular, and high
Okay.
season,
Hmm.
and then it's different for Japan to Australia. There's a lot of overlap, so it's
Yeah.
generally similar. But like for example, April 1st, April 23rd this year would have been low season to both Japan and Australia, but to Australia also. I think it was something like May 11th to June something or other was also low season, whereas that wasn't low season to Japan from the United States. So there's some things to navigate, but
Yeah.
bottom line is the pricing is good. It's worth looking at their site and
Right.
seeing it. So
Right.
you're stuck with 269,000 miles, and I say that's just some of the great regular pricing. We didn't even mention 88K round trip business class to Europe. Now, fuel surcharges are really high on Lufthansa-owned airlines, so you don't
Yes.
want to fly any of them. But I mean, there's so many good sweet spots though. Still, I mean, you can fly LOT Polish, you can fly United to get to Europe. You can fly, let's see, what is it? SAS, I think, was probably moderate fuel surcharges. Turkish kind of moderate fuel surcharges and kind of high side. So you got a lot of options anyway, a number of good options. TAP Air Portugal, no fuel surcharges to get to Europe. What are you doing stuck with 269,000 miles? How
Well,
come you
wait a
don't
minute.
find a way to use it?
Don't forget the 104K round trip business class to South Africa,
Right. Hello. And again, no fuel
which,
surcharges on Ethiopian,
well,
55, $65 in
that's
tax.
something I really appreciated in your post this morning, because when I was researching my post about what am I going to do with those miles, I looked at South Africa. I knew that if I fly to South Africa on Star Alliance, it's likely to involve Ethiopian, and I could not find information. Google did not help me find any information
About the fuel
about whether
surcharges.
fuel surcharges are passed along from Ethiopian. So
Little did you
I
know, you
love
just had
that.
to
I
log
love that
in.
you put that there, because that theoretically could be what I do. Is I just book it. So one of the nice things about ANA, I'm not sure if you put this in there, is that the date changes are free.
I didn't,
So
and I should have. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. I'm going to have to
yeah.
update
Now
that.
you can't change the route though. I mean, if you want
No,
to change the route, I think you have to. Now it
cancel.
doesn't cost much to cancel. It's like 3,000 miles per person, but I think you have to basically pay to cancel and rebook if you want to change anything, including just which carriers or just what route you go to get there, things like that.
Date
But
and
if all
time
you're
are
doing is
free, but everything else
if
you
all
want
you're
to
doing
pay.
is changing the date and time, so if I had a route that I liked enough and was pretty confident it would reappear, I could book it now or whenever, and then just change it as time goes on to a time that's actually more convenient to me. And I think, knowing at least historically, Ethiopians pretty uh, they're pretty I can't think of the word, generous with their
Yeah.
award space. That that would be a good pick, because I'd be kind of locked into that carrier. So so yeah, so that makes it a very legitimate option for me.
Yeah, so it was actually $67 round trip in tax on Ethiopian. I looked at that up, flying just to Ethiopia, but then I think it was $69 in tax, added a little bit if you continued on to South Africa from there. So
Yeah.
really going to get to South Africa, good way to do it. Remember, you can do a stopover on a round trip. Well, you have to book round trip with ANA, and you can do a stopover. You can do one stopover and one open jaw. So you could stop in
Hmm.
Ethiopia on the way to South Africa. You could theoretically, if South African Airways sticks around, you could theoretically do a stopover perhaps in Johannesburg or Cape Town and continue on to the other if you want to see both places.
Right. Right. Or at
You know,
least do an open jaw between the two.
Sure. Yeah. So a lot of good options there. And again, 104K round trip. I mean, that's pretty terrific. We mentioned economy class earlier, and they're another good sweet spot for economy there too. 65K round trip to Africa, also quite good with ANA miles. But at any rate, so yeah, I mean, there's some terrific options there. And then there's the round the world chart. And so I kind of put one together that I put in the post that I published on Thursday here. And so I put one together that I think it started in Chicago, flying to Tokyo, Sydney, Singapore, Delhi, Warsaw, Copenhagen to Boston. Like stopping in all of those places be like 145K total.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how are you stuck with these miles? I mean, are you going to use them now, or are you worried about it? Here's my situation, Craig. I am thinking very seriously about making a speculative transfer to ANA, and I look at you and I'm like, you're in this position where you're sitting on 269,000 that are about to expire, and you're like, I don't know if I can use.
Right.
Am I crazy?
Wait. Why would you make a speculative transfer? I mean, I know it takes a few days for the miles to post, but
That's mostly
why
why.
wouldn't you wait till you know what you're trying to buck before you move it?
Well, mostly why is because if I'm able. So here's my situation. I need 3 seats now because I have
Okay.
a son who's over 2, and we're
Right.
expecting another child in September. So I'm going to be traveling with a lap infant then theoretically also, and so I'm going to need 3 seats, and finding 3 seats in business class right now seems to be very challenging on ANA, whereas in the past that was actually pretty doable. I think nowadays I'm seeing 1 or 2 seats. So there's part of me that says, man, if I see a day with 3 seats, I want to be able to scoop that up right away, but it takes a couple of days to transfer the miles over. So I can't scoop it up right away if I see 3 seats. So there's part of me that's very tempted to transfer, thinking that, even if a trip to Japan or Australia doesn't work out, 88K round trip to Europe can work out one way or another. Probably take a trip to Europe at some point in the next 3 years. And today, I also wrote a post because now we found out that they've changed the way they're charging for lap infants. Whereas last year I paid 10% of the adult revenue fare for a lap infant. Now ANA is charging 10% of the mileage fare for a lap infant. So we're talking 7,500 miles round trip if you're doing that 75K business class to Japan, or 10,400 miles to Africa, or 100 or 12,000 miles on Star Alliance if you're flying to Australia. I mean, those are terrific lap infant fees. So there's part of me that says, man, I'm going to find a way to fly Star Alliance in the next 3 years. Like my next vacation, with that being the lap infant fee, a high chance it's going to be on Star Alliance. So am I crazy to think about speculatively transferring over so I can snap up that award space when I see it?
You might not be crazy, but you're missing out on an opportunity for me to basically loan you those miles. So, in my post, I talked about how my friend Dave wanted to do that, but we got caught up in the fact that ANA requires you can only book relatives, and so I wrote that we didn't do it because of that. But several people commented that they did something similar, and ANA never checks, your relativeness. So, if you want to become my cousin or whatever's allowed there, my
your brother-in-law,
brother-in-law, we could make it
work that out. Well, I mean, maybe possibly that's the way to do it then. But yeah, I mean, I've definitely thought about it. And so, I mean, if you're in a situation like that, great. Okay. So that would work out. I'd obviously rather do that than transfer over and sit with the miles in case I don't end up using them. But I feel like ANA seems like a really easy to use opportunity. I'm surprised that you haven't found an opportunity to use them yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's mostly because of 2 things. One is being based in Detroit, and always I'm strongly prefer nonstops over stops, especially when flying with my family. I don't mind as much when I'm traveling alone, but usually travel with my family or at least my wife. And Lufthansa is the only nonstop Star Alliance flight we have, and that's going to be
That's not good.
huge fuel surcharges.
Yeah.
So then it's also complicated by the fact that my wife and I have Delta Diamond status. She often has her airfare, her economy airfare paid for. So we book Delta Economy and use upgrade certificates to fly in first and business class. So all those things lead to the fact that it's not that often that um, that ANA would work for us at all.
Right.
And then complicating it is the round trip requirement. So even the one
That
time
does
I used the miles, the reason I got them, I didn't even use it for round trip at that time. I did this trick where you fly U.S. to Japan and then return to Hawaii because in economy, because Tokyo to Hawaii is much cheaper than Tokyo back all the way back to the continental U.S. And so that made a sort of slightly more than one-way price, but much less than the regular round trip price to book a one-way. And so I don't know that there's that many other routes where you can do that kind of trick. There might be,
I'm
but
not sure. Yeah, that did cross my plate, so to speak, last night as I was looking at pricing. But yeah, I don't know if there are other places. I didn't look hard for other places where you might be able to advantageously find a way to do that.
yeah. So I mean, I get what you're saying about the word space like might disappear at any time, but the other hand is like what I hate is how I mean, if you know exactly how much you're likely to spend, I guess you probably do. Then you could transfer over that much. But what I hate is the idea of even if you do use most of your miles, there's
Could
gonna
end
be
up with,
some
yeah,
residual ones that are likely to expire in 3 years. And
yeah, yeah,
well, I don't know, maybe not,
yeah.
because maybe you keep booking more awards, so you keep transferring more miles in. I don't know, but um,
Well, maybe.
I
Yeah, it's hard to predict. You certainly wouldn't know, so you're definitely running that risk. Because my thought is, I would probably move over enough to fly to Australia in case that's what we ended up wanting to do, with the backup
okay,
that 88K a person to Europe will work out. If not, so that would
gotcha,
theoretically, yes, leave me with orphaned miles. So that's a good point, and definitely a different situation for me in the sense that I tend to fly out of New York City, so I am not really so much
right.
captive to any particular alliance, since I can basically fly anything out of New York. So, but I will say a tip that I'll give you, and you'll have a couple of days head start before we publish this on everybody else, is that I did see quite a few dates out of Chicago next April with first class availability on ANA. Now, if you want to fly ANA first class, you want to do it with Virgin Atlantic miles because that's much cheaper than using ANA points. ANA is great for business class, pretty darn good if you want to fly economy class, pretty darn good for economy class, but phenomenal for business. Their pricing for first class kind of stinks, though. It isn't very good. It certainly isn't good compared to what Virgin Atlantic will charge you for the same flights from the United States. So you'd want to book those with Virgin Atlantic. I did not look for the return from Tokyo to Chicago, so I'm not positive that the returns were all there, but I was surprised to find a number of dates with 2 seats because I could only find 1 seat in first class out of all of the other hubs that I tried. So
That's interesting because I just found yesterday 2 out of New York to Tokyo first
really,
class round trip in
what?
May. In May,
What?
yeah.
I was looking at New York, and I was
It's
looking
in
in
my
May.
post. You got to look at my post.
What? It was in your
I mean,
post.
it has
What?
what?
Did I miss it? It was in the post.
Well, not the post that I've published yet. The one
Okay,
that I have saved.
I see. I see. Well, I guess I have missed that because
You
I
could look. You could go
definitely,
behind the scenes and
I'll
look at
have to go behind the scenes and see if I can get a head start on that one. So, so anyway, so I don't know if I'm going to go to Japan next year though. Anyway, so I guess I shouldn't get too excited yet, but I'll take a look. So all right, so there were definitely some good sweet spots to be found. I feel like ANA is a program that people are not looking at enough. I talked about that. This all kind of sprouted this week with ANA from the fact that ANA dropped the fuel surcharges, which we found out from Spencer straight to the points. He had me on for an Instagram chat on Monday, and he mentioned it kind of casually during the chat. And I was like, oh, wow, that's pretty awesome. And then
yeah.
Tuesday, he kind of let that that be known on his social media. So we went ahead and published it after he shared it with people, and then that kind of led to taking a more serious look at ANA. So some exciting options there. But I was saying on his Instagram Live, the reason that we kind of got to that in the first place is I feel like ANA is a program that flies under the radar with all these great prices. You have to book round trip, and that's the big pain for me. It's always been the pain point, but now I'm looking at more and more round trip travel. So I think it's kind of interesting. But all of that aside, it's really fun to fly in the pointy end of the plane. And
It is.
You wrote
so
about
yes.
good
So
options for
by the time anyone sees or listens to this, I will have published the second version of my post, which is the best international first class awards. And what I did, and so basically I created the first version of this post several months ago. So in March it was released. And the idea was I took 1 mile at a time. I took Lucky's list of the top first class products in the world. And I said, all right, I went through them. I said, which ones can you reasonably book with miles? Like where you don't have to be flying that particular carrier and earning that weird kind of miles, but you can transfer some from some program or some other reasonable way to get the miles and actually book first class. And so that whittled it down to about, I think maybe 8 or 9 carriers. And then I looked for, back then I looked for, was there award space in January and February to fly first class on these incredible products? And when I say incredible, I'm talking about these are suites in the sky. These are like, not all of them, but a lot of them are, several of them are, you have enclosed walls, you have not only a bed, but more space and a big recliner, all that kind of stuff. And
I mean,
champagne,
and
caviar.
if you've never done this, okay, I mean, if you've just heard about it a little bit, you've never actually done it, it's the real deal. Like flying that kind of style it is as much fun as you might imagine it to be, probably more fun, right?
it's incredible. Right. So anyway, so back then what I found was that a lot of the carriers, it was possible to find award space, usually just for one person. But I did find that Etihad First Apartments was pretty wide open in the winter for 2 adults, which is an incredible thing to see because that is an amazing product, as we've talked about before. So now what I did is I updated. I said, all right, let's look not at winter this time, but at spring travel. Let's look at mid-April to early May. What are we seeing? And one of the things I found, Etihad's still there, but there's a deadline. There's this was really surprising to me. April 27th, they're no longer allowing 2 adults.
That's so strange.
Before April 27th, there's plenty of award space for 2. Something happens April 27th. I don't know what, but I didn't see any more.
Are they planning on going bankrupt that day or something?
I don't know. And obviously it could change, at
Right.
any time, but that's what I'm seeing right now.
Interesting.
So there's that. Last time I looked, I struggled to find even one Singapore Suites award anywhere. This time I was really surprised to find tons of award space between London and Singapore. There was also a good amount from between Sydney and Singapore. And even if you wanted to fly, as long as you're okay with the old Suites product, between London and Singapore, you could fly 2 people without too much trouble finding that. And when on those Suites products, when you book 2 people, they make up, if you want it, they make up the bed, the 2 middle suites, the wall opened up so that you have a double bed. And
double bed in the sky.
That's like one of those things that it's like, I don't really know why I would need it, but it just seems like so cool to
How many people ever get a chance to experience that? I mean, it's one of those things you see in a movie and it doesn't seem realistic. It seems like over the top and crazy, and like you got to be a bajillionaire to ever be able to have that experience. But sure enough, you can get it, and you can get it from London to Singapore. You're saying, how much does that cost? How many miles? Do you know? Do you remember?
I don't remember. It's not cheap. You have to book with Singapore miles, and Singapore charges, want to say something in the range of maybe 110,000 one way per person, or maybe as high as 125,000. I can't remember. But it's close to double that if you go to their standard price. They have like Saver and Standard or something. So you definitely want to try to find that Saver, and that's what I was seeing. So that was good news. I did find, as I said earlier, I found some ANA between New York and Tokyo.
Sorry, everybody, it's gone. I booked it yesterday.
That's right. And there wasn't a lot of it, but there was some, and there was more if you're looking on ANA's website than on partner websites,
Well,
because
I was
ANA releases more website. They release more award space to their own members, so that's worth paying attention to. And I thought I hit the jackpot with Japan Airlines. So I actually wrote a post about it yesterday, where I said wide open awards between the US and Japan every day, 2 adults. And I was using A.com, and that's been a reliable source of Japan Airlines award space in the past. But and I sort of verified that if I change it to 3 adults, I didn't see that award space. So that kind of looked reasonable to me.
It's got to be real.
Yeah, I should have clicked a couple times in to see what happens if I try to book it, because when you did do that, you quickly got an error and it wouldn't let you book it. And so I spent hours today trying to figure out, is there a word space available or not? And I got a different answer on every website I used. So
nobody knows.
Qantas said, yeah, there is on these days. British Airways said, not only is there not award space on those days, but first class doesn't exist on those days.
Cabin's just closed that day. Cabin's closed, guys. Sorry.
And Japan Airlines itself had something in between. It was like, it didn't show as much award space as Qantas did, but it showed obviously more than British Airways, which was nothing.
Right.
So anyway,
show less than nothing.
I ended up, just giving up and saying, all right, so we don't know at this point.
Did you by chance try and call American Airlines on any of that? Not that I
no, but one thing I did do is I know there's some award space, because you know how I said you get an error if you click through?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I found the award space on Japan Airlines website and then went to American, plugged in that exact same date, then I could click through and it would let me book it. So I do know there's some. It's very, very hard to figure out how much is there, because yes, you could see how much Japan Airlines releases to their own customers, but I don't know that that's the same,
always the same
as what's available to booking with American Airlines. And we also know there's a weird thing going on with Alaska, where they're not allowing bookings of first class far in advance or something.
They're not seeing the availability, it seems, as far in advance as they previously had. Now it's only like 306 days or something like that.
Yeah.
30 or whatever it was before. So there's been a difference.
Thanks
there.
No Must Coach for that one. Yeah.
What about that? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's some weird stuff going on with JAL award availability. I was just curious with American, because I thought, I wonder if you're able to put it on hold over the phone, since you don't actually have to take it, if you could put it on hold.
Oh, you mean for the Phantom space?
Well, I mean, I doubt the Phantom space would work, but I guess then it would tell you, like, if you found something that you think you're pretty confident would work, you try and put it on hold. And if they can put it on hold, you would probably know it's not Phantom, right? I guess.
Yeah, but I guess my point is that I'm pretty sure that if it's not Phantom, you can book it online, so that you don't really need to do that.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, so fun stuff there. So are you gonna? I mean, I know you're looking at this a little bit. Are you tempted to transfer points to try to book any of these? I mean, I'll lead with my hesitation here. So I told you I was kind of interested in transferring to ANA. Man, when Emirates dropped their fuel surcharges, I was pretty interested in Emirates. A lot of this stuff looks really good. I mean, these are some really nice, luxurious products to fly in. And so if you're going to travel, and I feel like there's a decent chance I'm going to travel in 2021. Obviously, I don't know right now, though. And so that's that's where my dilemma is. I think if I'm going to travel, man,
Yeah.
snapping up some of these great premium products now seems awesome. I mean, I'm joking about how I already booked the ANA first class availability out of New York, which, maybe I will, maybe I won't, because I just don't know if I'm going to travel in 2021. And so my hesitation is, do I want to transfer points and book a trip and then come to find out there's another wave of COVID, there's more restrictions, I can't
Sure.
go, there's not going to be any, catering on the flight or whatever it might be. Are you ready? Are you at the point where you're ready to transfer points and risk that you might have to cancel it and get stuck with some miles that are going to expire in 3 years again,
Man,
or what?
I'd really hate to do that with a program like ANA where the clock stops at the end with no way of restarting it. Same thing with Singapore. I'd be tempted to try to work in Singapore suites into my travels, but I've been in that position before with Singapore where I had miles from a flight that had to be canceled. I don't want to be in that position again. So, and of course, as we just talked about earlier, I have all these ANA miles that I need to use. So I'm more likely to book business class with ANA than anything else. But if there's one thing I'm tempted to do as far as transfers is to aeroplan to book Etihad apartments for two. So, I could see going the long way home from Australia if I could find that award to go Sydney to Abu Dhabi to New York, all in Etihad apartments. That would be a pretty spectacular way to go.
It sure would. It sure would. So if that opened up, if you were like tomorrow, if you saw the two,
Well, it is open.
needed,
I mean,
so
it's open.
So what are you waiting for?
Actually, wait a minute. No, Abu Dhabi to New York, I think, was the one route. So New York to Abu Dhabi was pretty wide open. Abu Dhabi to New York, though, was not. And I think that has to do with it's easier to find that award space. You don't have to trick it to find it, unlike the other direction. So, yeah, that might be a little challenging to find that.
So, I mean, if you
Would
did,
I
if you
book
found
it?
it,
Well,
would you book it? Would you transfer the miles and book it now? Or, I mean, are you still too hesitant?
I think if
What do you
I
think?
knew, I don't even know roughly what date we want to come home. So I'm not sure do you know what ANA's, I'm sorry, what Aeroplan's change rules are? Will they allow me to change the date for free or no?
I don't know. No, I'd have to look
Yeah,
it up.
so that's something I'll have to look into. If they would, then I would definitely consider doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's an interesting dilemma because I don't know. I'm not like, I want to, I'm itching to book something. I feel like I almost want to book something just to have something on the books for 2021. And, because I just want to have a trip to look forward to at some point. Right. But
Sure. Yeah.
I'm hesitant to transfer over the miles and end up with them stuck in a program. Now I know I just said earlier, I'm contemplating transferring to ANA, but I mean, aside from that, because I feel like ANA gives me a wide range of options that are all great prices, I'm hesitant to transfer over to a program where there's one specific thing, like if I were to transfer to Virgin Atlantic to book ANA, I mean, that's like basically the thing that I would want. I mean,
Right.
I could use them for Delta to fly to Europe as a backup, if not. But there aren't a lot of things I have in mind right now to do with the Virgin Atlantic miles. So it's like it'd be one very specific use case. Whereas I feel like I'd have more flexibility with ANA, and I'm still hesitant. Like, man, I just don't know if there's going to be issues because we've already seen South Africa is saying they're not going to allow tourists until 2021. I think that's like, I think they said that they announced that a week or two ago that they're not going to allow any tourists in, any foreign visitors, not essential travel until 2021. So, I mean, that's already closed down until 2021. I saw that the border with Canada has been closed to non-essential traffic for another month, and Hawaii has extended their quarantine. And so I just wonder how long those are going to get extended. It makes it hard to book that future travel. It's fun to think about right now. And I feel like I'm going to regret it because I'm going to look at all this availability and it's going to be gone once it's safe to travel again. I'm going to be like, man, I waited a month too long. But
yeah. And then a lot of us are planning trips within our own state just to kind of get out, and it's hard to find luxury lie flat seating when flying within Michigan. I don't know about New York, but
no, there's none. Well, I mean, yeah, my wife drives sometimes, so I can recline the seat.
There you go. So that's sort of premium economy,
right,
maybe.
So it's leather. I mean,
domestic first.
Yeah, domestic first, more domestic first class. Right. As soon as I recline, though, then I hit my son's car seat, and I get the person behind me kicking my seat again.
Those economy passengers in the back.
Riff-raff. Can't live with them, can't live without them. So, all right. So we got a lot of cool stuff going on as far as that stuff. And there's great posts to look at. And if you're listening to this in podcast form, make sure you go to the episode notes and you can find those links to the various things we've been talking about, since I didn't give you any links as we were going through. So you have to check the notes, and those will also be on YouTube for those particular posts. So real quick, though, before we run out of time, I did want to ask you about Kimpton, because you wrote a post this week about Kimpton properties, the best Kimpton properties, in fact, in the United States. And I got to be honest, my eyes kind of glossed over reading it, because I was like, I can't get excited about Kimpton. Not because of your post, don't get me wrong. I love the idea behind comparing these resorts and hotels by using their average TripAdvisor ratings and using their comparison to other properties and whatnot. So, I mean, I think it's a great methodology. I just can't get excited about Kimpton properties. I'm like, I'm not going to get breakfast. There's no lounge. There's no benefits. And I think you like Kimpton. Were there any of them that you were excited about, that you were like, wow, this one actually, I would love to check that one out?
Well, I was excited to see, when I started doing the research, I was excited to see that there were something like 4 or 5 different properties in Key West. And we enjoy visiting Key West, so
I've never been.
I had no idea there were any Kimptons in Key West.
5 of them, really?
Yeah, 4 or 5, but they were all pretty far down on the list. So, in fact, most of them, there were very, very few that didn't score a 4.5 on TripAdvisor. But I think some of the Key West ones only got a 4.
Yeah.
So that doesn't necessarily mean they're bad, but it just took the excitement off of it. So no, I mean that was probably what I was initially excited about. As far as what you're saying about the perks and all that, the one recent Kimpton I stayed at, a couple years ago, I think now, we stayed at one in New York City. I can't remember which one. Maybe
I
it was
remember.
Yeah. I wrote about it,
right.
and the title is something like Platinum Benefits at Kimpton. So I was impressed that my having IHG Platinum status was so heavily recognized there. So they upgraded us to a suite. I don't remember what else we got, but you can read the post.
Find all of that. You'll find the link to that post in the notes.
Yeah. So we didn't get free breakfast, and there's no lounge, but they do have, all Kimptons, I think, have an afternoon free, like, wine and cheese kind of thing.
That's true. Yeah.
So you get to enjoy that. Nice. It is kind of nice. And so, yeah, we really enjoyed it. Now, when you say, do I get excited about it? I mean, I can't say I'm excited. It's like, yes, I like it, but I also like a lot of other
right, a lot of
hotels
other
things, and so it's nothing. It's not like flying Etihad apartments. It's not an over the top wow experience, but it's a good experience. So yeah.
Well, so I was interested when you wrote it. Well, so first thing, now you just mentioned the free wine hour, which is true. I stayed at a Kimpton last year, and they had that too. But when you mentioned it, it sprung something into mind that there's some cheap Hilton brand. I want to say it's like Embassy Suites or something, that I booked my wife and her friends for a shopping trip into one that was by a mall, and they had a free wine hour at that. And when I looked it up on the Hilton website, I think that's something that was like brand standard at that brand, that there was some sort of a free cocktail hour. I was like, how have I never heard of that at this extended stay brand before? So apparently there are other hotels that do that too. I mean, I know lounges do it and that sort of thing in places, but I was surprised about that one.
Well, Marriott Residence Inn, I think, they do like a manager special. I can't remember what they call it, but only on weekdays. But they do. It's more around food, so they have it's like lounge food that they have each evening.
Yeah,
and so that's very nice as an option if you're staying at one of those.
So there you go. Look for some of those perks out there. But Kimpton, I was actually kind of excited to check it out when you wrote it, because I wanted to see where a specific property ranked, because you ranked all the ones in the United States in this post. So they're all in there, and I've been curious about which ones I might be able to use my 40K certs at from the IHG, or my 40K cert from the IHG card. But I had recently stumbled on this one that's in Vermont, because Aaron Hurd at NerdWallet had written a post about 5 properties in the Northeast to check out, kind of a thing. It was like award type properties with the major chains. And I included it in the weekend review around the web last weekend because I was surprised. I live in the Northeast and I hadn't heard of any of these 5 properties. One of them was like Kimpton that was in like Manchester, Vermont, population 4,400 people. I was like, how did a Kimpton end up in a town of 4,000 people? I mean, and I come from rural America, so no diss to towns of 4,000 people. I mean, my town has many fewer than that. So no disrespect there. I couldn't believe that there would be a Kimpton in a place like that. And then it was like number 46 out of 60 or something. And I was like, it was all my enthusiasm. Just
You know, though, I don't think you should be that hard on it because the Kimptons are so highly rated across the board that being way down near the bottom of that list is not like being number 20 on the Marriott resorts in Florida list, which
true.
You know what I'm saying? Like the Marriott resorts range from really good reviews to really, really bad, whereas Kimptons, almost all of them have really good reviews.
Yeah. Well, I found it interesting anyway that there was one in such a small place because, I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot of fallacy to it, but travel to places that are less populated feels a little safer right now, I guess, with the COVID pandemic. Fewer people, I guess, fewer exposure, right? Or less exposure. So I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. That's a place that I could see myself maybe going as things ease up a little bit, where I can still be, fairly far away from most people, but still, get a chance to get out and visit a place. So I was curious about that. And like you said, I guess that's a good point. It's still, I think you still had it at 4.5 stars on TripAdvisor or something, but it was still number 46. So
I know it sounds bad no matter what.
Well, I say the number.
No matter what I say here, that sounds bad. Yeah. The other reason, I think you just sort of hit on one of the reasons I wasn't as excited about the results as I thought I would be too, which is I wouldn't have known this going in had I thought about it, but most of the Kimptons are city hotels and big city hotels. And I'm just not that interested in vacationing right now in a big city, and it's because of the COVID stuff. So, I was hoping to find more resort type of things. They didn't have a way to easily filter to resorts, so I don't really know which ones are resorts. I mean, there's a few that are pretty clear that they are because you could see that they're on the beach or whatever. But I think most of them are more like, as you'd expect, it's a boutique brand or more just a small thing that isn't really a resort. It's just what it is. But there's a few. There's some in Florida that look like they'd be nice to stay at as a resort property. But yeah, I was hoping to find more of that.
Yeah. I was hopeful too when I clicked on it, particularly because of the chance now with dynamic pricing, you found the ability to use 40K certs at some of those places, right?
Yeah, almost every place that I looked at, I could at least find some dates that were less than 40K. So some places that were regularly, 60K or more, I would find dates where they would only cost 30K. And so, and it wasn't that they were that cheap. They were cheaper at that time of the cash rate, but it's not like they were like dirt cheap. They were still like, maybe $250. Right.
Where a free night certificate would still be pretty worthwhile to use. So, yeah. So I'm going to probably end up going back to that post though, because I do want to use my certificate someplace nice. And I know Kimptons have that reputation. So maybe I'll check out the one in Manchester and give it a little bottom line review. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, that'd be good. You definitely should do
that. Speaking of reviews, real quick, US Bank released a brand new card this week. Is it interesting? Is it exciting? Why? Why not? What do you think? They introduced a brand new one. Tell us about it.
So US Bank Go, is offering Altitude Go, fee-free, and I think foreign transaction free.
It is, yes, that's correct.
And they're giving you 4% back at restaurants.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Less than that at other places. And so I don't remember what the others were.
2% at some other place, like grocery stores or something like that.
And then 1% everywhere else, right?
4% dining, including takeout, Grubhub, Uber Eats, stuff like that.
Right. So the basic idea is if you get this card, use it only for dining.
Right.
Because anywhere else you could just use a regular 2% everywhere card or better. So that said, in your post, you said you didn't find this exciting, that it was basically, you saw it as basically a card that's convenient as a way to get into the US Bank universe so that you could then get the Altitude Reserve card, right?
Right.
I was kind of surprised to read that because I
Okay.
actually think 4% dining with no annual fee is actually pretty exciting. So I was excited about that. I was recommended it to a lot of people when the Uber Visa had
Right.
that same thing.
That's true. Yeah.
And I would tell people then, get the Uber Visa for all your dining purchases and a 2% card for everything else, and these are people that wanted fee free and said they eat out a lot so I don't know. I think that's pretty darn good that now there's a new no fee version that'll do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a valid point. 4% dining with no annual fee, that is pretty good. So I'm not going to argue that that's a bad return. I feel like probably a lot of readers and listeners have a card in their wallet that earns better than 4% or a transferable currency that's worth more than 4%, I think. But if you're the type of person who wants to be annual fee free, or you're looking to cut back on annual fees this year and still get a great return on dining, then yes, you're right. It certainly might be worth it. So
Yeah. So I need to update, or one of us needs to update. We have some posts where we did like card combinations, and this deserves a spot in the cashback card combination.
it does. And, I think the Uber card was more interesting when it offered cash back because it also offered, what was it, the cell phone insurance on that card. There was another perk or two. I can't remember what they were, but I feel like there was
I don't
another
remember
small
either.
perk or two on that card. Whereas there was a $50 credit for Netflix or something like that if you spend enough money on it or something. But this one just is the 4% basically. And there's a $15 credit for Netflix or for streaming rather, I should say. If you put your streaming purchases on it monthly, then at the end of the year, you'll get a $15 credit for the 12th month. So I mean, could be a small money maker, could be decent for dining. Again, if you're looking for a cashback strategy, no annual fees, sure, get it for your cashback for your dining.
There you go.
And maybe get it for Uber because I mentioned in the post, kind of in passing through it, that it says it'll earn 4% on Uber Eats. Now we know from the Platinum card, the Amex Platinum card, that both regular Uber, travel, so to speak, trips in a car, or Uber Eats orders, both trigger the Amex Platinum monthly $10 credit there. So it seems to me that Amex sees a purchase, whether it comes from Uber Eats or Uber, codes the same way for Amex purposes. Now, is that going to be the case for, I think it's a Visa card, right? This US Bank Go card. I think it's a Visa, or is it a MasterCard?
I
It's
think
Visa, right?
I think it's Visa.
I think it's Visa. So I'm pretty sure it was a Visa card. I'll put a picture of it right above me here somewhere where it'll be like, yeah, it's a Visa.
Okay.
Duh.
That does
Anyway,
look Visa-ish, yeah.
well, if you're watching anyway on YouTube, you'll see that.
If you're not watching, just imagine a Visa card floating
right
above Nick's head.
Right. That says "Go" on it. Go Visa. So anyway, I imagine it's possible that that'll be the same for Visa. So maybe regular Uber trips will also earn 4% on it. I don't know that for sure. That's just totally a guess, but seems like an educated guess.
That would be nice. I mean, I have trouble getting excited about things like that because, like, how much does anyone spend on Uber? And if they're spending that much,
it's time
they
to buy
probably could do much better buying discounted Uber gift cards.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And there are a number of different opportunities to earn bonuses on Uber. Like I think right now, Uber Eats, Air Canada is offering 10 miles per dollar for a few more days on Uber Eats orders. So that would be worth more than 4% to me. SoFi has offered 20% back on DoorDash and that sort of thing at different points in time this year. So you're right. That's a good point too. All right. So that then I think brings us to the question of the week, right?
Question of the week. What do you have for me?
Week. Mike G sent me a question on Twitter. He sent a message to me on Twitter with a question that kind of piggybacks on a question from Lisa that we had talked about and privately and didn't answer on the broadcast a couple of weeks ago. So I think this is similar, cut from a similar thread. So everybody,
wait, you're referencing a conversation that we privately had that we didn't talk about,
right? But then I figured that would help jog your memory and put you in the right mood to answer this question. Okay. So everybody else is going to be like, "Well, Lisa had a similar question."
Okay.
All right. So Mike G says, "Hey Nick,
I have no idea what Nick's talking about.
I'm big into the hobby and a big fan of the site. Watch the podcast each week. Unfortunately, won't be able to make the live." Oh, that's right. Meant to mention that we're changing the live time, but you'll find that out. I guess you'll see an announcement. So he says, "I was hoping you can answer this question. Here it is. I'm at 224 right now. So 224 with Chase, obviously under 524. 224 right now, and I have no business cards in my wallet. I'm in the process of setting up my own business so I can get access to business cards. I plan to pay off some student loans through plastic, and I thought that I could use that as a minimum spend for a sign-up bonus on a new card. Any thoughts on what card I would have the best chance at getting approved for right now? And so I thought that was a particularly relevant question because business cards in general can sometimes be a little bit more difficult to get approved for depending on the issuer. And certainly in a current environment, we've heard stories of them being much more difficult in some cases. He's got no business cards at the moment, and he's looking to be able to use them on plastic to pay student loans. So that kind of makes it fairly specific in order to meet the spending requirement.
Does make it specific. So
what do you recommend?
So the student loan thing eliminates Amex off the top, and so Amex would normally be my recommendation for an easy way to get into business cards because they historically have been easy on approvals.
I thought the same thing. So let's ignore plastic for a second. If he wasn't looking to meet the minimum spending requirement with plastic, Amex seems like a reasonable one. That was my first thought too. They're usually the easiest approvals for business cards. Which one would you tell them to sign up for though?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, in general, I love the Blue Business Plus, 2x everywhere, up to 50K spend. But if you're really worried about approval, you might have better luck with the co-branded card. So, Hilton seems to be trying really hard to get people to sign up for cards. So, if getting approved is your sort of biggest thing, I might consider going for the Hilton business card.
Interesting.
What about you?
Just in order to start building a portfolio of business cards.
Get in the door with one that's easy to get approved. Yeah.
I think that's a really good suggestion. I wouldn't have thought of that. That wouldn't have come to mind. Blue Business Plus came to mind first, and I thought it's probably fairly easy to get approved for because you don't need to have a massive credit limit or anything. They might not approve you with a huge useful credit limit, but they'll likely approve you with some small limit, I would think, or at least fairly likely. Though I think Greg's right. I think the Hilton card might be more likely. And the problem with the Blue Business Plus is that I think if you apply through a referral link, like what we have on our best offers page, you get a very small bonus, 10,000 points, if I remember correctly right now after meeting minimum spend. It's a pretty small welcome bonus. So it's not going to feel like there's enough meat in that sandwich, so to speak. So, so I don't know if that's going to seem exciting enough. Whereas on the flip side, Business Platinum is going to require way too much spend since you can't hit your student loans with that through plastic. So, if you're even thinking that you need that in order to meet the minimum spend, then the Business Platinum is off the table for you. So, yeah, I was gonna say probably Blue Business Plus be my pick, but now you convinced me, Greg. Hilton it is.
All right.
Hilton Business.
So I don't know whether the Hilton Business is right now at a top bonus amount, but that's something worth looking into.
Okay, but so that aside, now he wants to be able to pay student loans, though. He's at 224. Yeah. Now, keep in mind, by the way, Mike, that you're at 224, and applying for that Hilton card isn't going to affect that because if you're applying for the business version, that's not going to add to your 524 count. So that's not going to get you any farther away from Chase cards. There's no damage done by going after a card like that. So, but let's focus then again. He wants to be able to pay student loans.
So I can't remember off the top of my head whether Visa business cards are allowed to pay student loans or not. I think they probably are. But that's something. If you go to our plastic guide, it's right in there whether you can or not. But anyway, if you could do Visa, I think I'd be looking at the Chase Ink Cash, maybe. So the Ink Cash and the Ink Business Unlimited are those have the 50K offers, and they're easier to get than the Ink Business Preferred, which has the 80K offer. And the reason they're easier to get is because they'll approve you with I think it's a $3,000 credit limit, whereas the Ink Business Preferred requires maybe a $5,000 limit. Mm-hmm. So that would be my next guess. Although we have heard that Chase is being much tougher on business approvals right now.
We have
a little bit.
You have to log in.
A little bit leery about that.
Yeah, and if you don't have any deposit accounts with Chase, then it seems that you may not be able to. It seems like that's been a hurdle that's been repeated enough times at this point that it seems like that may actually be a thing. They may want you to have a deposit account in order to get approved for a business card right now. It's not like hard and not set in stone necessarily, but it does seem like something that we've heard a few times. So that may be a barrier there. So
Although, I mean, my son got his account 6 months ago or so,
right.
and doesn't have a deposit account.
No, I think that's like a more COVID recent.
More recent, okay.
It seems.
So, I mean, opening a business account with Chase is not a bad thing to do, and certainly, if you have a branch that's open and can do it in branch, one way that improves approval odds, I believe, is to open a business account, and at the end they say you've been pre-approved for this card, and it would be one of the ink cards, and you could apply then. The hurdle is that in order to open this business account, you do need a DBA, a doing business as certificate from your county or whatever. That's not a big deal usually. You could usually get one for $10 or $20, but
well, and Mike does say he's in the process
of
setting up a business, so it would seem like it's a legitimate business. So one would think that he may be able to meet that requirement. So that would involve, again, opening up like a business checking account or something like that in branch, is what you're saying.
Yep.
And then from there, you may get an offer.
I'd be very surprised if he doesn't get an offer at the end of the setup process of setting up that account.
So there you go. And by the way, I did check while Greg was talking to make sure he was absolutely correct that business Visa cards can be used to pay student loans. So consumer Visa cards cannot. You'd need to use either a MasterCard, a Discover, a business Visa, except the business visas from Capital One. Apparently that hasn't gotten resolved yet, or U.S. Bank. So not from Capital One or U.S. Bank, but from Chase, you'd be able to use a business Visa. So I think that's a pretty good idea, the Ink Business Unlimited or the Ink Cash. Right. Are the two suggestions there. So one of those probably would be your best bet, I think. Best welcome bonus, most valuable cards to have long term. So all right. So Hilton, if you want to go Amex and not pay your student loans with it, or Ink Business Preferred or Ink Business Unlimited. Now, if you can't get approved for one of those, do you have a 1/3 tier card that you would recommend?
Well,
Chase might be a little harder these days.
So one of the ones I like for paying plastic bills is the Bank of America Cash Rewards card that gives you 3% for some different categories, and if you pick travel, there's certain things that you pay with plastic that might just look like travel to Bank of America. So that's a nice option, especially if you have a lot saved with Bank of America, you get extra rewards from them. But the reason I didn't bring this up is that I've heard that Bank of America is pretty hard on approvals and harder than usual these days as well. So actually, I feel better about this suggestion of going in branch, opening up a business checking account, and applying from there.
That's a good tip. Because that's a good way to begin a relationship with the bank, theoretically anyway, and get your foot in the door to be able to get a pre-approval that you'll kind of have an idea right away that you're likely to get approved for. So I think that is a good safe tip, because these days it is a little bit of a difficult environment. So I think that applying for business cards is probably more challenging in general. Amex is probably going to be your easiest bet. But yeah, we've heard stories of Bank of America becoming more difficult. We've heard stories of that Barclays Aviator business card being challenging for people to get. Capital One can be challenging, although if you're at 224, maybe one of the Spark business cards is worth taking a look at. The Spark Miles card, then you'd have the ability to transfer to partners or to be able to use it towards travel purchases. So that might be worthwhile also.
What about What about Citibank's American Airlines card?
I mean, that's
historically they've been super easy to get. I think I've heard some people saying that denials are up, but I still bet they're easier than others. So if you value American Airlines miles and want an easy grab, easier maybe, that might be an option too.
There you go. All right, so now you got a whole bunch of different options. So Mike G, hopefully we gave you some stuff that you can use. So
all right.
I think that
Maybe
brings
next
us
time
to
we can answer Lisa's question next week. I remember it now. It's a good one.
Very good. All right. So I want to thank you very much, Greg. Thank everybody who's out there. If you
Thank
want
you,
to read
Nick.
more, you're welcome. If you want to read more about what we've been talking about and you want to get in on these things as soon as we post them, you want to go to thefrequentmiler.com/subscribe. That's thefrequentmiler.com/subscribe. So you can get on our email list and you can join our Facebook group and follow us on Twitter and all those fun things there. Again, see the episode notes for links to all of the posts that we spoke about this week specifically. Thank you very much again, Greg, and we'll see you guys all again next week.
Bye, everybody. See you next week.
Bye-bye.